Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. For the last few days, there's been this whole thing about Don Cherry and the Order of Canada. And it's really starting to annoy me because it's the epitome of politicizing something that is specifically designed not to be politicized. Now, to catch you up, Conservative MP Andrew Lawton has declared that he has nominated Don Cherry for the Order of Canada, which any person can do. You can nominate anyone to the Order of Canada, and it goes to a nonpartisan, independent committee headed by the Chief Justice. And they examine the nominations that are put forward and make recommendations to the Governor General as to the people who deserve the Order of Canada. And the whole point of this is that it's nonpartisan and that it's not the government or anyone affiliated with the government who is giving a say as to who deserves to get this award. It's experts. It's a panel that is chosen that does this work independently and outside of political interference. And one of the reasons why, of course, that these honors are independent and separate is because they reflect the crown. In Canada, the crown is what we call the fount of honors. It means that all of the civilian honors are flowing from the crown, which means it's not flowing from the government, which keeps it apolitical and neutral. I wrote a column on this last week, which was essentially that this kind of system shows how essentially it makes us superior as a constitutional monarchy to a system like the US, where things flow from the presidency, which is inherently political, even though as the head of state, it's supposed to be more of a non-political ceremonial role, but because the Americans fused the head of state and head of government together, that makes everything political. So in Canada, we don't do that. We ensure that our honors are coming to us through the crown, and that makes everything depoliticized. And that's a really important thing to have for things that are unifying and which celebrate us as Canadians as a whole, and so on. But that's not what's happening right now. So first of all, Lawton announced that he made this nomination, which normally people don't do, because normally nominations are kept quiet so that there's no embarrassment if somebody doesn't actually is not chosen. That's part of part of why the process works the way it does. However, he's also decided to put a petition on the Conservative Party website for people to sign to say that they all also want Don Cherry to get the Order of Canada. Now, the Order of Canada Selection Board does not take petitions. This is strictly a data mining exercise on the Conservative Party's part so that they can get the names of people who are big fans of Don Cherry, and they want to use that for their own purposes, for whatever the reason. We can pretty much guess as to the reason, but anyway. And he's gotten the, Pierre Poilievre and Danielle Smith and Doug Ford and a bunch of others to all loudly declare that, they support Don Cherry getting the Order of Canada, which is not how the process works and which is not how it is supposed to work. And it's really infuriating because now you have reporters asking the Prime Minister what he thinks and so on, and it's not his call. It shouldn't be his call, and we need to stop doing this kind of thing because it politicizes a specifically non-political order or honor which comes from the Crown, not the Prime Minister, not the Leader of the Opposition. And it's so infuriating that they are trying to do this for the sake of data mining and for the sake of culture war nonsense. Because if we all remember, part of the reason why Don Cherry eventually lost his job with CBC was because of comments he was making about visible minorities whom he claimed were insufficiently patriotic and claimed that they weren't wearing poppies for Remembrance Day, even though there was absolutely no evidence that that's the fact. And even the Canadian Legion was saying that there was no drop in poppy sales or anything in downtown Toronto, where Don Cherry was signaling or was insinuating that this was happening. And you know, the most diverse and cosmopolitan city in the world, and you people and all this kind of stuff. Now, this also backfired on the Conservatives, because you have a bunch of Quebec Conservatives who are not happy about this, because Don Cherry also is not popular in Quebec, because he spent years slagging Quebecers, slagging Europeans, slagging essentially anyone who's not, you know, a white male, straight white male. And straight white English speaking male. English speaking in there is also important, because that's also why Quebecers are so upset. So this was an own goal on Poilievre's part, because he is now signaling to his caucus that he does not care about the fact that someone whom Quebecers do not like deserves the Order of Canada, in spite of having spent a career slagging Quebecers. That's not unifying. That's not, you know, that's also, you know, politicizing, you know, his speech as well, in a way. And so this was a dumb move in terms of his own caucus management, and in terms of trying to build bridges in Quebec, which the party says they want to do. But part of that means you have to understand Quebec culture, and at least, yeah, understand it, and try and deal with, not deal with it, adopt it to an extent, or show that you can at least appreciate Quebec culture. And this is kind of a slap in the face to Quebecers in that regard. It's saying that, you know, he doesn't care that this was this is something that they don't like, and they disagree with, because it's all about this particular old boys mentality. And again, it goes back to this whole culture war stuff, that they are signaling that, you know, Cherry should not have been fired for these deeply xenophobic views, and that he should therefore be rewarded for them, because this is part of the culture war grift. And it just brings me back to the whole point about, this is not why the Order of Canada exists. This is not why it works the way it does. And by doing these antics, they are cheapening the order, and they are making it worse for absolutely everybody now and in the future. And I really wish that Lawton and Poilievre and all of them would, like, realize this and grow up. But unfortunately, they don't want to do that. And so we're left with this particular position where we are now in the midst of seeing the Order of Canada being denigrated in this particular way. And it's infuriating, and it should be infuriating. And it's one of these things that I wish people would, you know, actively shut down when this conversation comes up, and say, you know, like, this is not what the Order of Canada is for. This is not how it's supposed to work, and leave it at that. But unfortunately, that's not how the media cycle is working. We have so many problems in this country right now. We are in the midst of global crises, plural, and instead we're having a culture war grift discussion about this. And I wish we didn't have to, and I wish people would just grow up and not do it. But unfortunately, this is where we're at, and yeah, we shouldn't be. And that's everything for this week. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. It's at journo_Dale on Twitter, and journodale_no_ on Bluesky. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.